so anyone not in the know is just totally pissed that Jackson is rubbing Gandalf's death in their faces while everyone else is thinking how cool it is to see the scene from a different perspective. I guess you could be thinking both things. A time when the camera stretching and warping a matte painting like this makes sense since we're headed towards the core of the Earth, where at least if Brendan Fraser movies are to be believed, things get weird. Also, the instantaneous switch for Gandalf from sympathy to, ooh, he's a badass good wizard, smacking the crap out of a fire demon while plummeting to his assumed death. Also, just a hardcore yup opening to this film.
Lambus bread. And look, more lambus bread.
Optimism.
Because we've been here before. We're going in circles.
Let's face it, Mr. Frodo. We're lost.
Believe it or not, that's more realistic than you might think. Walking in a straight line is actually really hard, and they've done studies with people lost in the woods where they never left an area the size of a couple football fields. And with this, you think, oh, you have to keep Mordor in sight, but they're going up and down and around, and it's so far away it never changes size or shape. They can't even go in straight lines, so getting lost would be really easy. We're so used to fake mist and fog that when it's real, it doesn't always look it. But this is all real, just rolled in while shooting. Pretty much right out of the gate, we get to be impressed by Andy Serkis and Gollum CGI. And now we get into why Gollum is special. Andy Serkis' motion capture performance gave Frodo a real hand to grab onto and interact with. It brings Gollum, a fully computer-generated character, into the scene like CGI had never done before. And then that quick switch from attack mode to pathetic. First hint that there's more than one personality inside that grimy head. Hansel and Greteling. So apparently every single one of these guys was injured for this entire running sequence. Dislocated knee, cracked rib, and broken toe. These guys are warriors. Jackson, together with DP Andrew Lesnie, also makes what could be a pretty standard chase scene more fun by constantly spinning the camera around the actors.
They're taking the hobbits to Isengard!
I feel like Legolas would be a good singer, maybe a decent rapper. That same poor tree has been cut down so many times now. No wonder the Ents get pissed.
And the Iron Fist.
Man, Danny Rand can't hold on to that Iron Fist to save his life. Props to the Uruk-hai actors. There isn't enough silver or gold in the world to get me to be birthed from slime film.
Saruman will take it by force.
That is a lie.
Wormtongue is amazingly creepy, and it's really not a big surprise since Brad Dourif seems to love roles like this. I fell in love when he was a conscienceless Maquis on Voyager.
They run as if the very whips of their masters were behind them.
Just the idea that the Uruk-hai can't distance themselves from Legolas and Aragorn, and their speed and determination is forcing Gimli beyond his limits.
Keep breathing. That's the key.
What about them? They're fresh.
Everyone loves the Hungry Orc, but fun fact you may not know, Andy Serkis did the voice.
Looks like meat's back on the menu, boys.
Just in case you needed more reasons to hate and be terrified of orcs and Uruk-hai, they're also cannibals. Or are they different enough that it's not cannibalism? I'm gonna refrain from coming up with a real-world comparison.
No one's gonna save you now.
Saving them young hobbits when no one would save them now.
May these horses bear you to better fortune than their former masters.
Generosity. Or maybe more like recompense, you know? Sorry for killing your little buddies. Vigo kicked the helmet so hard he broke his toe, meaning that yell was real. It reminds me of a real scene in the first one. I can't remember right now. Oh well, let's not be important. Smooth present to past, day to night transition. Does that classify as a beautiful beard? I think it does.
Let's put a maggot hole in your belly.
Comeuppance. Just for saying maggot hole alone.
Never heard of a hobbit before.
That actually makes sense, since hobbits keep to themselves, and Bilbo was one of the very few to even leave home before this.
Can't eat hobbit food. We must starve.
Physical embodiment of extra. You should have checked to see if these guys want to fight in a war with you later. That's one of the best reveals in the film. You think, they must have blown their writing budget on Gollum's mocap for this movie, so it's just a dude sitting still holding reins and then boom, dragon snake monster mounts. That's right, I don't even care what they're actually called. Fellbeast, I had to look it up. Just in case you were unsure if Gandalf was any more powerful now.
They passed this way the day before yesterday.
Tricky having both Ian and Christopher read the line, but I appreciate the symbolism since
I am Saruman. Rather Saruman as he should have been.
Stormbreaker!
Every day was as long as a life age of the earth. Gandalf, that was what they used to call me.
So even if he was only gone for one day, one life age, he'd probably forget his name. Ha! I love the detail of the Lorien leaf that means Gandalf must have gone to see Galadriel after fighting the Balrog. now's as good a time as any to say Howard Shore's score is still amazing. Blended with the scenery, it's like a dream. Just the way Treebeard's feet roots grab the ground with every step. Mordor's version of two-factor authentication, also awesome.
No, don't take it to him. Always, he's looking for it.
I know it seems like Gollum is still trying to create a situation where he ends up with the ring, but based on this, he may have also had a little foresight about what the ring actually makes you do. Everyone treats Fanghorn like it's super dangerous and the trees will do something, but Treebeard's been nothing but a sweetheart. So this scene actually helps in that regard, and I refuse to make an Evil Dead joke. Also, got a couple Tom Bombadil lines in there for the 14 people missing him in these films.
Drink water. Go to sea. We lost the Entwives.
How did they die?
We cannot find them.
The walls of your bower closing in about you.
Grima actually perfectly articulates the fear that Éowyn confides in Aragorn later, letting us know that he doesn't just think she's super hot, he knows her. And that's a pretty good way of showing how powerful Grima's manipulation is if he can sway Éowyn for even a split second. Another reason that Brad Dourif kills this role. You actually see humanity in his eyes. The reason the wind is so unruly is because she's standing on a real building they built for the film on top of a mountain with crazy wind blowing that actually took Peter Jackson's glasses one day. So the flag ripping off was planned, obviously, but also completely practical, and the way it flew to the ground so perfectly was just dumb luck. And just because I can already see the comments appearing below, it was absolutely meant to happen. Go watch the commentary again. Actually, no. What am I talking about? Let's just nip it in the bud.
And the flag ripped off. We made it rip off, but then the flag blowing in the wind and going over the rooftops. It was so windy that it did it perfect.
What's weird is that I couldn't find one single article, video, Redditor, or anyone who didn't think the whole thing wasn't planned. Just the way it floated was an accident.
You would not part an old man from his walking stick.
Ha, really selling that feeble old man lark there by even grabbing onto Legolas for support. Gandalf, you old white minx you.
Gandalf, Stormcrow.
Stormcrow is a fun little nod to the books where Theoden is insinuating Gandalf only comes around when there's trouble.
I have not passed so far in death to bandy crooked words with a witless worm.
Pays no mind to Wormtongue, and then casually walks towards the king while his buddies fend off the goons, without weapons I might add. Great way of establishing how competent our heroes are. Also, Gandalf is a badass good guy. Ha! Forced projection before it was cool. Or hated, I guess. But seriously, after seeing Saruman win last time, having Gandalf the White deal with Saruman with ease is so satisfying. Some of the smoothest blending as he de-ages.
Enough blood has been spilled on his account.
Mercy. Kind of a theme throughout these films.
No parent should have to bury their child.
Can't even imagine the pain. And knowing you had a chance to be with him before the end, but it was stolen from you by magic. You can't blame him for being a little wary of someone trying to influence the throne again so soon.
So Gandalf Greyheim thinks he has found Isildur's heir. He is a fool.
Further showcase of Saruman's arrogance and the arrogance of the evil side in general. Information that is useful to you just pushed aside because it's easy to pretend like Gandalf is wrong.
I do not think that will be your fate.
Way to keep her from falling in love with you, Aragorn. At least Grima had the decency to be a creep. The moment we all begrudgingly admitted that Gollum was kinda cute.
You can't save him, Mr. Frodo.
Oh, Sam, you're sweet, but you're simple. I like that this argument works on two levels. Frodo does feel pity for Gollum because of everything Gandalf said in the Mines of Moria, but he also fears his own fate and worries if he can come back. Then Sam, being a little thick, misses that he's worried about that, and so in addition to the ring poisoning his mind, he's also upset because Sam just unknowingly implied that Frodo will also be lost to the ring's hold forever. And if you're wondering why Sam is always so hard on Gollum, that's it. He sees his best friend slipping away even if he doesn't totally understand why.
Master? Yes, precious. False.
And now we see the true internal battle going on inside Gollum, and it starts to make sense. One personality actually abusive and manipulative to the other. But really, let's just sing Andy Serkis's Oscar-less praises for a little bit. He captures, and in a lot of ways creates, two distinct characters living in one body with facial expressions, speech patterns, and even different voices. And insanely, this scene was all done as one continuous performance with him just switching back and forth. The animation in Gollum and Smeagol's face stands up to this day as one of the best executions of a full CG character.
What did you say?
He said they're taking the hobbits to Isengard.
Stupid fat hobbit.
Compliments?
What's this, precious?
Top of the list, line I probably quote monthly because I'm just that lame.
Potatoes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
Meme win.
Give it to us raw and
Go culinary lessons. Fortunately, only one small child was killed by Gimli's flying axe.
Then you must be at least 60. You cannot be 80.
87.
Okay, that's something I'll give the extended edition as fun information left out of the theatrical. I get why it's a little goofy, takes some of the grounding in Aragorn's character out of reality for some reason. Though it doesn't bother me that Gandalf is 2000. Interesting. I just have to point out that that length beard is so itchy. I can't wait to get past that length of growth after any time I shave. And Aragorn had to keep that for years. Oh, would kill me. You guys can't stop talking about how Viggo broke his toe, and I'm over here wondering how he hasn't scratched all the skin off his face. Commitment to a role. Love dreams? Love hallucinations? Love memories? Little CGI wonkiness, but still pretty dang slick. Brutal. Another awesome scale-establishing shot from Isengard. Such a meaningful moment where Grima realizes what he's done, at least what he's been a part of, and really solidifies that he just wanted Eowyn to love him. He didn't want to end mankind. Now that's a faithful horse. Mercy for the win again. Oh, right, because he let him free earlier.
Turn this fellow free. He has seen enough of war.
Even when they're conspiring to destroy young-ish love, Hugo Weaving and Cate Blanchett are both always a win.
For Sauron will have dominion over all life on this earth, unto the ending of the world.
Sugarcoating.
And this is Samwise Gamgee.
Your bodyguard?
His gardener.
To enter the forbidden pool bears the penalty of death.
So, would you call it a dead pool?
Wait. This creature is bound to me, and I to him.
More mercy. Turns out Gandalf knew what he was talking about.
Chance for Faramir, Captain of Gondor, to show his quality.
This is one scene that is truly missed in the theatrical. It spells out Boromir's true motivations and softens his misstep in the end of Fellowship. A scene that makes you understand his motivations before we see how crazy Denethor is in the next one.
The One Ring. Isildur's bane.
This thing must come to Gondor.
Gondor.
Bring me back this mighty gift.
No.
Both Faramir and Boromir are much more sympathetic after this. It also sets up Faramir's relationship with his dad for the next film and makes it a little less jarring.
A chance for Faramir, Captain of Gondor, to show his quality.
One thing I will say for these movies is that there's barely a scene just for its own sake. Like, you could complain that the warg scene was just that they needed an action set piece, but without Aragorn falling off the cliff, he'd never have seen the armies, and it also creates tension for everyone at Helm's Deep and allows Eowyn to actually confront her feelings for him. That's a lot of outcomes. Hugging. Now, that's an entrance.
They come to destroy his people, down to the last child.
What would you have me do? Look at my men. Their courage hangs by a thread.
Interesting dichotomy between the man who was born to be a king but has never led, and the king who has been leading. They're both right and yet both imperfect. Gotta keep spirits up, but you can't mislead your people either. And Groot?
Nathadagathyr.
Then I shall die as one of them.
Lack of discretion, but courage.
This is a good sword.
Encouragement and a great turning point for Aragorn. They ride the line between building the tension for this battle while not having us go in completely despondent.
We are proud to fight alongside men once more.
Allegiance. So we've basically just had about 45 minutes of build-up to this battle. Everyone entering Helm's Deep, Aragorn seeing the huge army, fortifying the entrances, trying to quickly turn kids and old people into warriors by putting weapons in their hands, which leads to this super depressing speech from Theoden.
Where is the horn that was blowing?
And then the elves arriving. Now the tension hits a peak and plateaus there with no score, no movement, just men and elves waiting for the imminent battle. At first you can just faintly hear the Uruk-hai army marching. It slowly builds until thunder breaks the silence, and then rain drowns out any remaining silence, and we get our first look at and listen to the approaching death. It's a masterclass in tension building. It's a time that rain doesn't feel overly dramatic, it feels earned and right on cue. Also, I think we've established fights in the rain are always a win after Jack Reacher. Whoops! Fun fact, the arrow loose was accidental and the Uruk-hai actually did die. Just kidding, just kidding. He totally meant to kill him. Accidental anti-stormtrooper aim. Also, beautiful beard win. So, pretty much calling it even for the guy who started the war. Elf Helm, or wait, no. He must have fallen off the Wilhelm's Deeping Wall. So I had a lot to say about the build-up, but the actual battle's execution is so top shelf, so perfectly planned out, it's the battle that all other film battles are judged against now. Huge, epic battles like this can be scary to make for a lot of reasons, but a main one is your audience losing interest. This is a sprawling fight with lots of extras, so much going on in the dark and in the rain, and we continually cut back to Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn, keeping us invested in their personal part to play. They're involved in every turning point of the battle, and obviously Legolas and Gimli's little competition adds a little brevity as well.
I have no pointy out outscoring me!
We have just agreed.
It's tough to end, Groot.
Is this all you can conjure, Saruman?
Who asks that? For the record, this is not a failure of Legolas. What more could he do? And these reactions. These aren't modern-day soldiers used to the sound of constant shelling. Explosions like this are probably pretty rare. Even Saruman treats the gunpowder bombs like magic. So of course this look of surprise is appropriate. Also, the explosion is an awesome miniature, and silver linings, at least the debris is killing Uruk-hai. And it's hard to compete with an army that suicide bombs and sacrifices outside ranks like their orc shields. Looking awfully clean and well groomed there, spear-throwing Rohan soldier. I remember this section of the Lord of the Rings PS2 game being really annoying, because there's nothing you can do to stop them from coming in. It's the movie's fault. Gotta give badass good guy status to Aragorn the same way I did for Elrond in the first. Elves or not, arrows whizzing past your head are terrifying. Just the commitment on Aragorn's face. Can you really blame Éowyn? Shield surfing, I mean door surfing. They're all doors, okay? Ladder gap punch. Getting saved by your king. This one short section of the battle with no score, just the sounds of men, orcs, and metal clanging really brings you into the angst they're feeling.
Toss me. What? I cannot jump the distance, you'll have to toss me.
Learning from your mistakes.
Nobody tosses a dwarf. Not the man!
Yep.
The closer we are to danger, the further we are from harm.
Eloquence.
Doesn't make sense to me, but then you are very smart.
Funny, but also a very clear turning point for Pippin. He's never really seemed to get the stakes until now.
There won't be a Shire.
I always like going south. Somehow, it feels like going downhill.
And Gimli, John Rhys Davies, apparently ad-libbed that. He's become comic relief no matter what he's playing in this film.
Many of these trees were my friends. The Ents are going to war.
Solidarity? I could still see people getting confused, but the gray color palette with Mount Doom in the background really sets Osgiliath apart from Helm's Deep's blue shades with the rain pouring down. Some more amazingly present CGI with the Nazgul flying overhead.
What can men do against such reckless hate? Ride out and meet them for your people.
Now Aragorn is the one that's not willing to quit, as Theoden's facade has crumbled and he's ready to give up.
For death and glory.
I think they see this as their Butch and Sundance moment. They must have Redford and Newman equivalents in Middle-earth, right? Yep, cool. An awesome if brief moment of success before what we assume will be failure. Yep.
Not alone.
Judge Dredd to the rescue! I gotta be honest, I had no idea Éomer was Karl Urban and barely recognized him until the third time through. So, transforming into a role. Some of you mentioned all the things Gandalf was talking about when dueling the Balrog, and the reason I didn't bring it up then was because I love the payoff of it here. Flame of Anor is the sun, blinding these suckers so they move their spears at the last second. Also, Gandalf to the rescue in the coolest way, which is also an amazing entrance. Also, wizards arrive precisely when they mean to. Orc baton. He's fine now. You could take issue with this scene because why does the Witch King just seem to leave after this? There's actually nothing that says he does. While they can't be killed easily or by a man, their mounts take damage that affect them. As far as we know, the Nazgul was alone and there was a pretty large group of soldiers there. So he may have been swooping around, but they had backed behind cover and then left through the sewers. It's just that simple.
It's your Sam. Don't you know your Sam?
Ugh. That'll gut you. Even with Frodo almost completely gone, Sam still tries to reach out to him because he'd never hurt Frodo even to protect his own life. And Frodo's realization at what is happening is equally powerful. Just the devastation on his face.
What are we holding on to, Sam? That there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo.
Sam's speech is a tiny little ray of hope in an otherwise pretty dire part of the story, but it's so perfect coming from him, the Endless Optimist. And the look of acceptance on Gollum's face that he'll never be that good worth fighting for is just as moving.
Release them.
I never quite knew exactly why Faramir had this change of heart, but seeing Frodo hold a sword to his best friend's throat probably made him realize how terrible the ring actually is and the need for its destruction. Comeuppance.
Cause he's got my axe embedded in his nervous system!
Agreed this was a little too real for theaters. Good for a laugh now, though.
We did find you quickly. If you bring them to harm.
Quickly? Yeah, well, that was pretty quick.
Frodo wouldn't have got far without Sam.
Friendship.
Fat hobbit. He knows. Put out his eyes. Yes, yes.
And then you realize Smeagol might not be the sweetest thing around. At first you think, well, sure, he doesn't like Sam.
Kill them both.
And then he doesn't like the idea of killing Frodo. Oh.
No, it's too risky.
But just because of the risk.
Smeagol will show you the way. Follow me.
Distinct Gollum voice, meaning they're no longer following Smeagol.
You can never go home.
Ending with another crazy long take of Gollum chewing the scenery and then opening the credits with his song. I guess this is his movie. So you've probably noticed by now, this is the extended edition of Two Towers. That's what you guys resoundingly wanted, and like I said earlier, I'm nothing if not amenable. Originally I was going to give you the option between 1 week for theatrical and 2 weeks for extended, but then I realized, I don't need sleep. Sleep is for suckers. Just kidding, kids, you need sleep, and most of us need more than Casey Neistat, even if I've been getting less in the last few months. But I have to say, and I don't say this nearly enough, that I really, truly appreciate all of your comments. It's sappy and cliche, but know that I read as many of them as I absolutely can, even the long ones where you guys talk about your lives and relationships, and even if I don't respond, you guys very often put a smile on my face. In addition to that, I read your comments because you often agree on things that I missed, which is even sadder when it's something left to the deleted section of my script. I try to hit everything, but not every moment is going to resonate with everyone the same way. I joked when winning the toe-breaking scene, but something you all agreed win-worthy in Fellowship was this scene. Lurtz wasn't supposed to throw his knife directly at Aragorn, but when he accidentally did, Viggo reflexively deflected it. And much like the toe, that take is in the film, which is even crazier when you remember that Viggo wasn't cast until shooting had already begun and he'd never even used a sword before. So real-life badass good guy, which he then solidified by continuing this take after breaking his toe and then just being an all-around sword master going forward. Anyway, while I stand by my earlier statement that the theatrical cuts do stand alone, for example, I would write a win for the movie holding something close to the chest and then the extended would undo it. There are still quite a few extended edition scenes that offer deeper characterization and deleted scenes that set up stuff in the next film. And while I didn't technically do the Fellowship extended edition, I watched it, which is why there was a clip or two in there. And I can honestly say I don't think much, if anything else, would have made the cut had I exclusively used the extended. We've already discussed a lot of the background of the trilogy, but the one cohesive story feeling you get is something that can't be overstated. That doesn't happen when you only shoot one film at a time. We feel like this one picks up right after Fellowship ended because it actually does. And a lot of you know that Tolkien intended this to be one long book with different volumes, not a trilogy. Money and apparently a post-World War I paper shortage meant that he had to split it up, so that's why the first movie really only feels like the first act of a larger story. But that doesn't mean Peter Jackson and the other writers didn't make this middle chapter work. Like I said in Fellowship, the books are their own pieces of work and everything diverges a lot in Two Towers. The movie actually ends quite a bit earlier than the books, which is a better resolution to this particular story. But the biggest thing making it work are the two huge achievements I briefly mentioned in the Fellowship video. Performance, or more accurately at this point, motion capture, and an epic battle, both of which were pushed to new heights in this film and the next. I mentioned the physical interactions with the mocap actor, and Andy Serkis needs to be praised. One of the most emotional characters in the film is completely computer generated. We feel everything from sympathy to hatred to pure terror by the end when you realize Smeagol may not be any better than Gollum, just more timid. But if we're going to talk about Gollum, we have to talk about Weta Workshop. There had been CGI characters before Gollum, obviously. Even Weta had worked on Hercules and Xena. But when talking about bringing a human-looking digital creation to life, they were really starting from scratch. Motion capture had been used since the early 1900s, but never with an actor on set in the actual scene. That was groundbreaking, and it's why Gollum never looks like an afterthought. He wasn't. Andy Serkis was filmed with Elijah and Sean in addition to a motion capture studio by himself. But then they also brought his facial expressions and movements to life when he was fully digital. And it could be Gollum's departure from looking too human, but I get no uncanny valley from him. The next thing is the huge sprawling battle. Nerdwriter has a great video that goes into extreme detail that I recommend, but just briefly, this 40-minute battle took 120 days to shoot. Full-length movies are shot in less time than that, and although there are digital shots with fully digital armies, there were also a crap ton of actual human beings used as well. So that's just spectacle, and by itself, it's impressive. But what makes it work is story. I touched on it briefly, but Theoden is given an arc through the battle. This little poem recitation is basically, woe is me, no one will help, we're all gonna die. And then he has this bewildered look on his face throughout most of the battle. He tries to get involved towards the end, but it's not until Aragorn inspires him that he rides out proud. So from a technical, planning, freaking pure stamina, and even story perspective, this battle changed the game. And then on the other side of Weta, you had the art department that did amazing practical sets. Like I said, Edoras is real. Helm's Deep is a huge miniature. I praised the first movie for everything being real and built, and that extends to this film. Costumes really handcrafted, a whole bunch of them worn by women pretending to be men. Apparently there just weren't enough male horse riders with horses in New Zealand to fill out Éomer's ranks, so they started slapping beards on women. But just like before, their weapons were actually forged, and oddly enough, even parts of Fanghorn Forest were built. Meaning, technically they're not real trees. They were built to look older and more gnarled and threatening. A lot of Fanghorn Forest only existed on sets, so nothing lacking in this film compared to the first one. And that applies to the underlying message and themes as well, which brings me to Sam again. Sam has a couple different moments in this film that further solidify his character. Both are true to who he is, but one is dangerously close to prejudice and the other is perfect optimism. The first is when he admits to Frodo that he doesn't believe Gollum can be saved. That's because Sam sees the world very black and white, good and bad. I don't think he realizes how Frodo interprets that because there's no deed that could undo how Sam feels about Frodo, even with a sword at his throat. For Sam, Gollum is evil just because, and Frodo is good just because. It's the lack of the gray area that both leads to his undying trust, faith, and love in Frodo and his undying distrust and hatred of Gollum. It's why he blames Gollum for who he is and blames the ring for who Frodo is becoming, which leads to his speech about how none of them should even be there. It's all wrong, none of it is fair. But he believes in fighting for the good in the world, and that's what keeps him going. That's why he can be the ultimate optimist. And that continues into the next film when things get even worse. And Sam's actions in both, and actually in addition to saving Frodo from putting the ring on in front of the Nazgul, are kind of the core of this film. Frodo actually asking himself the question, can I resist the ring? Or am I doomed to become like Gollum? And by the end, he answers the question.
I can't do this, Sam.
No, he can't. And it's only Sam's words and the heart behind those words that keep Frodo going. I won't pretend like this scene isn't a little silly in execution, but I get the point. It's not supposed to be schmaltzy. Frodo is trying to tell Sam something Sam somehow doesn't have a clue about at this point, that he'd be totally lost without him. Literally, multiple times at this point. Frodo would not be where he is, and we all know that continues until, well, that's next time. So go watch it and get ready.
I'm wasted on cross-country. We dwarves are natural sprinters.